Hey guys, how's it going? Today's video is going to be another tag because it's NaNoWriMo and tags are quick and easy. Today's video is going to be the Writers Are Weird tag. This tag was originally created by Elliot Brooks and I was totally tagged by Laura from Laura Writes. I'm going to leave both of their videos and all the questions down below if you want to check them out or do this tag for yourself. I just thought it sounded like so much fun because writers are weird. So without further ado, let's just get into the questions. Question number 1. Do you have any bizarre internet searches? If so, what's the weirdest? I actually recently had to delete all my cookies and clear my history and do a bunch of nonsense on my computer, so I couldn't look up and check, but probably. Actually, one thing that I almost always look up before I write anything is most of my stories are fantasy and they're usually set in the past because I don't know, I don't like technology in fantasy all that much because it's hard to write, okay? Anyway, I usually just kind of pick a time period that matches where I have in my head and base it loosely around that. One of the things that I always double check is what bathrooms were like for that specific time period. Because I don't know enough about the history of plumbing, and even though there are almost never bathroom breaks in my stories, I feel like it's one of those pieces of information that I have to know to be able to immerse myself in the story. So yeah, usually just miscellaneous bathroom related, plumbing related questions. Question number 2. Do you write people you know and dislike into your story as villains or dumb people to kill off? I have definitely drawn inspiration from people that I know and dislike in real life for unlikable characters. Not necessarily like villains or just people to kill off, but just to get that unlikableness down. I think about people that just rub me the wrong way in real life and just try to isolate what it is that just really bothers me about them and use some of those traits into the characters. But there was once that I specifically wrote somebody that I very strongly disliked into my story as the villain. But in my defense, it was the first novel that I wrote, Fear's Error. I've mentioned a couple times. It was my first NaNoWriMo project. But it was very strongly inspired by something that I was going through at the time, and it started off as just like kind of more of a coping mechanism of just putting this scenario and the events of it into like a fantasy setting and going from there. Obviously the story has evolved and changed a lot since then, but it was just a way for me to explore what was going on in a completely different setting and just a way for me to deal with it, I guess. So the main villain of that story is 100% the person that was causing all of these problems in real life. Like honestly, even their name, if you know the person, you can see the parallels, and like the physical description is very similar, and yeah. So I guess yes, but usually it's not as obvious as that. Question number 3. Does personal hygiene sometimes come second to writing? Not really. As far as things like brushing and flossing my teeth goes, I have horrible teeth, very, very, very bad, weak teeth, so I always floss my teeth and I brush them. Like, I'll be at the computer writing and snacking on things, and after every couple bites I'll floss my teeth. Like, flossing comes first in every scenario. Question number 4. Do you go on baby name websites to help you name characters? Yes, 100%, always. If the character is for a fantasy novel and it's like a non-human character, then sometimes I'll go on like fantasynamegenerator.com. But for any of my human characters, I almost always go on baby name websites, usually behindthename.com, because that one is just, I love the way it searches, I love the way like the website is, really big fan of that website. Question number 5. Do you have a list of actors or actresses that would play your characters if there was an adaptation made? Honestly, no, like, never. They exist too strongly in my head for them to become somebody else, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, it's like if I was thinking of any of my friends, like who would play them in a movie if they made an adaptation of their life into a movie. Like, it's just not something I think about because I don't think of what actor would play my best friend, I just think of my best friend, if that makes sense. And now that I explain it that way out loud, that just sounds really lame. Question number 6. Have you ever stared at a stranger because they look like one of your characters? I don't think so. To be fair, my most recent work in progress, Monsters and Imaginary Friends. Out of the 3 main characters, one of them is a little boy who, he has a very specific look in my head, but he kind of just looks like a typical little boy, and I try not to make a habit of just staring at children. And of my other 2 main characters, one's a monster and one's an imaginary friend, so people don't tend to look like them. Although, to be fair, if I ever did come across someone that looks exactly like Rabla, I would stare at them. But probably because they have horns and giant eyeballs and kind of look like a skeleton. Question number 7. Do you talk to yourself to work through scenes? And if so, where do you talk to yourself? Yes, I always talk to myself. I talk to myself everywhere, for everything, all of the time. In my defense, I live alone, and I live in like a full-sized house. My house growing up was always loud. I had 2 brothers. We raised my cousin. My grandfather lived with us. Like, it was a busy house. And then after that, I moved out, and I always lived with roommates or in apartments with really thin walls. So now that I live alone in a house all by myself, it's quiet. So I just always talk to myself because, I don't know, it's quiet, I'm lonely, whatever. Most of the time I talk to the cats, but I'm talking out loud to them, so I'm not just sitting there saying, okay, now what would be best in my story? Maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do this. I'll just talk to the cats. Comet's on my lap. I don't know if you can see her. Here. Boop, there's Comet. There's almost always a Comet on my lap, but I'll just look down and say, Comet, what do you think would happen? This or this or this or this or this. And I'm just talking out loud, but to her. So yeah, I talk to myself and I talk to my cats, which is really the same thing. Question number 8. When writing, do you make the expressions your characters are making? I don't think so. The only exception to this, and I think a lot of other people that have done this tag have said the same thing, but if you're trying to explain an expression, sometimes I'll make the face that I'm picturing and look at it in the mirror just to, I don't know, to be able to visualize it and explain it a little bit better. Although this does remind me, kind of related, I have noticed while I'm editing my videos and watching them, I make the same face that I'm watching myself make. And it's really annoying now that I've noticed it, but like if I smile at something, then I'll be smiling, which is nice, but if I'm making a stupid face, I make the same stupid face. And a lot of times while I'm like adjusting clips, I'll have it paused, and it's usually just like a random screenshot of like, you know, as you're like blinking or sneezing or something, and then I make that face. So I do that, but I don't mimic my character's expressions. Question number 9. Do you ever practice answering interview questions in case you make it big? Yes. I've always done this though. Honestly, that was one of the big reasons why I started my YouTube channel, because I just very often monologue in the mirror and just pretend like someone's asking me a question that I'm going on about. And it's not necessarily like in case I make it big as a writer, but a lot of times that stuff actually makes it into videos now. So before, I would just look in the mirror and have this big long speech prepared about why something happened in one of my stories or whatever, but now I can just make that into a YouTube video. So even though I haven't made it big yet, I still get to put that into practice. So I don't think there's anything weird about that. And finally, question number 10, do you have a soundtrack and or playlists for your book or scenes from your book? I don't. If I'm writing an action scene or a really dramatic scene, or there's just a really strong mood to the scene, I'll usually listen to some sort of instrumental that reminds me of that. Usually something from like 2 Steps from Hell is a really good one, or certain like video game combat scene music, stuff like that. But I don't have anything specifically planned out for any stories. It's just if I need to get into the mood, I'll get some sort of instrumental mood music. So that is all for today's video. Overall, I don't think that was that weird. Thank you again, Laura, for taking me. Again, her video and the original video and the questions are all down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please click the like button to let me know, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm posting videos every day in the month of November, mostly for NaNoWriMo, but twice a week I'm doing other videos. Outside of November, I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday, usually reading or writing related. But I hope to see you guys next time, and until then, have a great day. Bye!